Hi, it's T. Today is a pajama day, but I thought that I would come and share with you one of my challenge quilts. I'm not going to be able to actually post this video until around the end of the month, but I am working on a challenge for my large guild. It's called Something Old, Something New, Something Borrowed, Something Blue. So for my something old, I am actually going to be recycling a pair of jeans. I've already just cut the legs off so that I can put that back in storage. Something new is going to actually be my accessories. And something borrowed is that I'm actually borrowing a Quilting Arts magazine. Somebody put this on the free table at the guild, so I am going to use this pattern and then I'm going to put it back on the table for someone else to use it. And my something blue is actually going to be my background, although I do have blue also in the denim. So what am I making? I saw this in the magazine, and it's actually a little quilt here, like hanging on a clothesline outside. Has a sunflower here. And then down at the bottom, when you open the jeans up, it has two little birds in there. I think they're, I don't know what kind of birds. I thought they were hummingbirds, but I'm not sure about that. But what I'm going to do is I am going to embroider a bird with a nest into the jeans. And then I thought you might like to share my progress as I go. So I have picked a design. So let me get that. So here is the bird design that I have chosen. It was already on my machine. I'm not sure exactly whose embroidered design this is, but if I find it, I will put it in the description box. Because up there I don't have it in a file folder with a name. Normally I put my designs that I know who they are in a folder by themselves. So, but I will try to figure that out and give it to you. So this is what I plan to put under my jean. Okay. I'm back and I have done my machine embroidery. I got so busy that I forgot to show it to you as I did the embroidery. But this printout was using Madeira and poly neon threads, and I did not have those, so I just kind of guessed at the coloring, and I just took a chance and went ahead and put it onto my background. So I still have quite a few jump stitches. Even though I have automatic thread cutter, I still had a lot of jump stitches in here. I cut some as I was going, and I will just cut the rest because that's not interesting to see. But let's just take it out and see what I have. I put a few pins in here as a registration. And so this will be towards the bottom of my jean where it will open up, and this will be on the inside. So my next step is, according to the pattern, they have a little sunflower that's in the jean as well, to kind of let you know that something could possibly be in the jean. So I am going to use something that I googled. I just googled large sunflower and I found this image, so I am going to use this image, and I chose it because it was in one piece, and I'm going to do my highlights with fabric markers and thread when I get to my quilting part of this. So that is going to be my next step. And then on the back, I forgot to mention that I did use a lot of stabilizer. This design has over almost 38,000 stitches in it, so I used 4 layers of tearaway underneath. I hooped just one, and then I slid 3 additional layers underneath my hooping frame. I am going to go pull all of this stabilizer out, and then I will press this just to get it a little flatter, and then I will work with my applique. So I used my sunflower. I actually used a light box, and I traced it on the wrong side, although it really didn't matter on this. But anytime you're doing fusible applique and you want it to be going a particular direction, you need to trace from the wrong side. So I traced it onto my fusible. I have it ironed onto the back, and then I just freehand some leaves that I'm going to stick under the sunflower, and I just picked another piece of scrap. So my next step is to cut these out, and then I will place them around in this area somewhere and then fuse that down, and I will come back with that. Okay, I'm back, and I have my graphic here, and I'm also using one of my Tulip dual tip markers. I've traced my applique, cut it out, and now I just want to try to do some defining lines, and I just want to know where some of my petals are going to come out. So let's see. So I'm going to use this as a reference, and then I'm just going to try to pull in some of these inner curves, and it doesn't have to be perfect right here. I am actually going to be quilting these things in. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see what I have there, and in my center it's going to be mostly brown, and I'm going to fill in with thread. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this a little darker here. And I could have done this with a brown fabric, just made a circle, but I want some of the yellow to show through. Okay, so I have my sunflower completed, and I know it looks a little weird now, but I'm going to stitch in, and then I'm going to also add some embellishment. So I'm hoping that this will be pretty in the end. So I will now go and put my leaves and my sunflower onto my background, but I think I want to wait a little bit for this ink to dry. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so I'm back, and I have my pieces fused, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this with my embroidery machine, and then I'm going to quilt it. So I will come back, maybe I'll show you a little bit of the quilting. It's very difficult for me to show you some of the machine embroidery, but I'm just going to use a blanket stitch. I'm not going to use a zigzag or anything, and stitch these pieces down. So I'm back. I have done all of my stitching on my sunflower. I just did a buttonhole stitch all the way around. I did not do any stitching in here. I'm actually going to do that doing the quilting. And I have a piece of fleece. I thought maybe I might need to use something a little sturdier, so I'm hoping that this fleece will work, because I am going to be adding the denim on top. And then I have cut a piece of fabric from my backing stash to use for my back. So I am going to put this on my machine. I probably will go ahead and stitch everything but outline the sunflower, and I'll show you how I outline the sunflower. Okay, I have my entire background quilted, and I do have the camera off to the side now because I need to see where I'm going to be stitching. So I am using more of a medium yellow, and I do have another goldy yellow here just in case, so I haven't decided which one. But I figured, just like in painting, that you start with your lightest color. So I have no idea exactly what I'm doing. It's just going to be trial and error. This is all an experiment. So, got my bobbin thread up. Just want to tie that off. And I'll clip those threads in just a minute. Just get started here. Okay. Now, my vision was I was using this line as my shading when I drew it with the marker. So I just want to do various rounds of stitching, but not completely cover it up. And then the same thing here. Just go back about 4 times on each line. Take some all the way down. And then this one here is only up here. I'll just go that way. Just trying to add some depth, but still keep some of the marker that I put on. Trying to make it look as realistic as possible, but not do a lot of work to get it. And at this point in time, it would have been great if I had my new feet system installed, but I do not. So I am just going to lay some fibers up here that I'm going to try to stitch around. So I am just going to wrap it around my fingers loosely. and try to use this as some sort of 3D element. Okay. Okay. And we're going to hope and pray that this works. I think I might want it just a little tighter, so I'm going to try for 3 fingers instead of all 4. So I'm having difficulty getting around, so I am going to put on my new foot system and then we shall continue. After much to ado, I have decided to install my new Gamma Quick Change feet, and that's a whole nother issue. I'll talk about that in another video. But I am just trying to couch down some yarn into this area. So I have on my spoon foot. I tried using the cording foot, and maybe because I got a thing of fleece and batting in here, it was too tight. I did sit 3 business cards on my machine, and so I'm going to assume that I have a lot of thickness going on, so I'm not able to use the cording foot, which I thought that I would be able to use. I couldn't get my cording to move, so now I'm just trying to stitch over the top of cording as I place it down here. And so I will just go back and forth over the cording, and it is very difficult for me to move the machine at this point, so I'm just going to take it to, I've got a lot of layers on the machine. But I wanted you to see how I'm kind of stitching this down. I'm looking for more haphazard nature look. All of this is an experiment, so I'm just trying to fill in as much as possible as I can on the center. I'm not trying to cover it all up, but I'm just trying to make sure that my thread will not get caught. So I think that is enough. So I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread here. So now you have seen this stitching, so I'm just trying to move the machine over, and I'm hoping that you can see what's going on here, because I have you on a side view now. Okay, so I am going to now do some stitching over here where I want to couch some things down. I have quite a few materials that I just picked up. I want to make the nest a little more 3D-ish. So I have some of this yarn. I'm just going to place some of these fibers down and 3D this basket out a little bit. And maybe some thread. And have another color of thread, and maybe go ahead and use a little bit of this brown. Okay, so I just want to figure out a way to make it just a little 3D, not a whole lot. Trying to get as many of my threads corralled back up here. And I can trim off whatever's left, but I'm just trying to make it look like my basket is a little more bushier. Okay. And now I just want to trim some of these off because I don't want them hanging all over the flower too much. So just wanted a little bushiness, but not a whole lot. And then I'll have some more of this hanging out of the jeans pockets when I get to that. Okay. This is truly a day of learning. After much debating, I realized that maybe I got too many layers here. So I am going to just pin baste this onto my quilt top. I am then going to take it to my regular sewing machine and zigzag the edges down. So I'm almost getting to the end. So now I'm just going to go to my machine, stitch this down around the sides, and I'm going to, for right now, leave the top unstitched. I will see what happens when I get this part done. I have zigzagged my sides, straight stitched along the outer edges, and I have some strings to pull out. And right now my jeans have nothing holding them together here. So my next step though is I'm going to fray check these areas so that they don't fray anymore. And then once this dries, I can trim out any long frays. Because I don't want these to keep, I don't want to have to keep trimming this off. Okay. So I'm just going to let that dry. My next step is actually, once that's dry, to trim this up and do the binding. And I already know that this is going to be a problem trying to bind this, so I don't know what I'm actually going to do when I get to that spot, but I will update you when I come back. I have put the binding on the quilt, and it is a little tacky in this area. I had to actually hand stitch across this area, and then I tried to stitch as close as I could to this on both sides, and then I had to hand sew this seam as well that connected the two binding pieces. So I've kind of pressed it to the back, and you can see here that I do have a pleat, and I'm just sharing this experience with you. It is very interesting trying to figure out how to tackle all of these different areas. So I just wanted you to see the process so you can see what I go through. Everything isn't easy all the time. So let me zoom back out, and I have found a cord that I'm going to use, and I also found 2 clips, and so I kind of have the clips where I want them on the jean. Okay, and then I am going to actually hot glue these down. So I don't have my iron plugged in yet, so let me do that. So I went and attached my binding. I have it now sewed down all the way around. I do have an awkward piece right here, so I will probably figure out something to cover this. Maybe some yo-yos or something. And then my next step is I need to figure out how to keep this open, but then I also want to be able to close it if I want to. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. So I got to figure out that part. And now I just need to put little strings hanging out through the pants. And so these are the threads and yarns that I used before. So I'm just going to pull off some thread. So, and I'm going to do this pocket here. Gonna leave that pocket plain. And I have already hot glued my clotheslines down. So I'm just working on this other part. So now I've just got all of this little stuff that I'm just going to tuck into this pocket, and I'm just going to put a little hot glue in here and stick that in. So that looks pretty good. So I don't know if I need to zoom in or not. So I just want to lift this up, put in some hot glue. And just poke this in here. And just let the glue hold it. And then I can also put a little glue up on top here to just seal this off. So you can see that there's pieces, but they won't fall out. So I'm hoping you can see that. Then I have just a little bit of this I want to put up on the top And along with some of this cord. So I'm just trying to just intertwine these so that they don't look like two separate pieces. Maybe I'll put some knots in here. Just making this up as I go. And I just want to leave them loose. And I think I want to put this around this end. So I'm going to loop it through. And right now, I'm just randomly pinning where I want this to go. Okay. So I have a needle threaded with some double, I have it double threaded, I have a double knot, and I just want to tack this down. And I'm using white because when I come across the rope, I don't want it to be as obvious. Or my clothesline, shall I say. Okay, let me pull that out. I may have to come up through the back. So I just want to put a few tacking stitches to hold this in place, and I don't want it to necessarily show too much. So I'm just going to go around it twice with my double needle, double threaded needle, and now I can pull this pin out. Flip this over and tie a knot. Well, that didn't work out very well. I'm having issues making knots today. And I'm going to leave all of this in so you can see what I have to go through. So I don't have my needle threaded anymore because it knotted up, so I need to now tie a knot. Take one end, tie it, and now do the other one. Okay, and I'm going to rethread those and pull the thread tails through, but I'll do that later so I'm not holding up. Okay, so now I want to kind of hold it up and see where I can bring this back in. So I want to bring it back into my design, and I think I'm going to do it here. And then again on the back, try this knotting thing again. And then I just want to travel down a little bit before I cut it off. Rethread my needle, or reknot my needle. Okay, so on this end I'm going to cut this off and just put a knot. And then I'm just going to fray the end of this rope or this cording since it's probably going to fray anyway, so I may as well fray it to get the full effect. So we are almost done with this side. Now I have this little cording here that I have free hanging, so I need to do something with that. So I'm just going to tack this down into the back. So you want to come up around that cording and come back down on the other side. And then I'm just going to knot off. Okay, so I'm almost done. I think I want to make some kind of sign that I'm going to hang and say there's a robin's nest in my jeans. I think that's what I'm going to title it. So I need to figure that out, and when I'm completely done I will come back and show you the finished project. I'm showing you my quilt hanging up, and forget about my antiquated phone. I'm probably one of the few households that still have a home phone, and I just have it in my hallway so that it's accessible to anybody that wants to make a phone call. But ignore the phone. We're here because of the quilt top. I got the quilt top completed, and I was telling you in my last session where, let me loosen my tripod just a sec, where I wanted to put something over where I had to do some of the hand quilting, but I didn't want to put it and cover the entire fly and make it look very obvious. So I just added 5 yo-yos that I made by hand and just tacked them down on the bottom. And then up at the top, which you've noticed, I now have a sign, which is actually the title of my quilt. So for my label, I actually machine embroidered the label, and I used Customs Work software by Designer's Gallery to input my text and add a frame around my text. And then I took my embroidered piece and stuck it to a piece of double-sided Peltex, and I fused that, a piece of fabric to the back as well as a piece of fabric to the front. And then I used my rotary cutter with the wave blade and pinked the edges. And then I used my grommet maker to add 2 grommets into the top corner so that it could hang off the top. And then I just used some of that cording that I use as embellishment in my sunflower down there. I actually put that up at the top to hold it. I just put the knots up and just left them out. It's a lot of stuff that's frayed down here, so I didn't feel that I needed to conceal my knots up at the top. But here you're actually getting some very good close-ups too of some of the other embellishments. So this is my interpretation of something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And again, my something old was my denims, my denim jeans, and actually it was all the fabric that I used in this project because all of this fabric was old. I didn't purchase anything. My clothespins were old. I just picked those up off of the clothesline downstairs. And something new was all of the embellishments, the threads that I use, the rope, the grommets, all of the cording and threads. All of that was my something new, which I consider those were my embellishments. And something borrowed was the actual magazine. It was not a pattern. It was Quilting Arts, and I will add it, the issue, in the description box. It was a challenge that people were sending projects that they couldn't figure out what to do with or were stuck on to someone else, and then they took those items and made something from it. So it wasn't a pattern. It was just showing you what she received and what she did with it. But it was still borrowed because I got it from the Gill on the free table, and I'm actually taking it back to the Gill and putting it back on the free table. And then something blue, of course, is just about everything that's in the quilt. I've got blue embroidery thread, blue in the background fabric, blue jeans, and I also have a blue binding. So that is it for my challenge quilt. I will hold this video so that I can add in if it won any awards or anything. But I also thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye. Hi, it's T with an update on the challenge. Now that I'm able to post this video, I want to just go ahead and add in that my quilt did win a couple of ribbons. It won 3rd place for interpretation of theme, and then it also won 2nd place for machine quilting. So I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.